My mother leaned across the opulent table at the five-star Grand Plaza Hotel, her diamond rings catching the light as she gently tapped her crystal champagne flute. With a practiced, impossibly sweet smile, she announced to our family that I would be signing over the deed to my sprawling, multi-million-dollar lakeside compound to my older sister as a baby gift. My father immediately backed her up, his voice booming across the private dining room, as he threatened to drag me into a brutal legal battle if I refused to surrender my property. He claimed he had a legal right to everything I owned, simply because he co-signed a minuscule car loan for me over a decade ago. What they failed to realize was that I had not only paid off that property in cash, but my elite cybersecurity firm had already intercepted the encrypted financial data, proving my brother-in-law was hiding an $850,000 federal fraud scheme. Soon their high-priced attorney would be running away from the negotiating table, pale and sweating through his designer suit. Before I continue this story, let me know where you are watching from in the comments below. Hit like and subscribe if you have ever had to stand up to toxic family members who constantly underestimated your worth, while secretly trying to drain your bank account. My name is Sienna, I am 31 years old, and for the vast majority of my life I have served as the designated scapegoat for my family's rooted toxicity. Growing up in our affluent suburban neighborhood meant constantly projecting a flawless image of excellence to the outside world. But behind the heavy mahogany doors of our childhood home, emotional coldness, vicious manipulation, and blatant favoritism permeated every single corner of our lives. Our house was a fortress of impossible expectations that I could never quite meet. From elementary school straight through my university years, I maintained a perfect academic record, joined elite honor societies, and worked multiple exhausting jobs just to get a microscopic fraction of the approval my parents freely and endlessly showered upon my older sister, Chloe. Chloe was the undeniable golden child. She was coddled, protected, and financially subsidized at every turn, while I was expected to shoulder my own heavy burdens in complete silence. If I succeeded, it was expected. If Chloe succeeded, it was a miracle worth celebrating with a lavish party. The ambush happened on a Sunday morning at an exclusive, high-end brunch buffet in the heart of the city's financial district. The private dining room was dimly lit, filled with the soft ambient murmur of wealthy patrons, the elegant clinking of expensive silverware against fine china, and the low soothing hum of a live jazz quartet playing in the background. I had arrived straight from my office, still wearing a sharp, tailored black power suit, exhausted from a 70-hour work week, but willing to make a brief appearance for the sake of maintaining a fragile family peace. Chloe was sitting directly across from me. She was 35 years old, 6 months pregnant, and resting both hands on her swelling belly, with a practiced, irritating look of delicate innocence. Sitting right next to her was her husband, Marcus. He was 37, wearing a flashy, loud designer suit that practically screamed new money, even though I knew for a fact that he had not held a steady, verifiable job in nearly 3 years. My parents, Evelyn and Richard, anchored the opposite ends of the heavy oak table, like two commanding generals preparing for a hostile invasion. We had just finished our main courses when the atmosphere in the room shifted. My mother, wearing her finest Sunday silk dress and a heavy string of authentic pearls, picked up her silver dessert spoon and gently tapped it against her crystal mimosa glass. The sharp, piercing ringing sound cut cleanly through the ambient noise of the restaurant. I looked up from my plate, slowly wiping my mouth with a crisp linen napkin, expecting a generic toast to Chloe's upcoming baby. "Sienna," my mother began, her voice dripping with that thick, artificial sweetness she exclusively used whenever she was about to demand something outrageous. "Your father and I have been talking for the past few weeks, and we have come to a truly beautiful, generous decision as a family. We know how hard you have worked, but the Lord blesses us so that we can bless others. Chloe is bringing my first grandchild into this world, and she needs a fresh start in a safe, expansive environment." I smiled politely, taking a slow, measured sip of my sparkling water. "That is wonderful, Mom. Are you and Dad helping them put a down payment on a new place in the suburbs?" My mother let out a soft, patronizing laugh that immediately made my blood pressure spike. Oh no, sweetie. We decided that you will be signing over your lakeside compound to Chloe and Marcus. The property it is the perfect size for raising a growing family and hosting elegant gatherings. You can easily downsize and move into a luxury apartment downtown, near your little computer repair job. It makes so much more sense for a single childless woman anyway. The cold sparkling water nearly caught in my throat. I set my crystal glass down on the thick white tablecloth, staring directly into my mother's eyes, to see if this was some kind of elaborate, twisted joke. But her contoured face was serious. My father was vigorously nodding in agreement, cutting a piece of his steak without even looking at me, acting as if they had just casually decided what I should order for dessert, rather than demanding the surrender of my multi-million-dollar real estate portfolio. I am sorry, I said, keeping my voice low and measured. You want me to give my house, the sprawling lakeside compound that I bought with my own money, to Chloe? Before my mother could answer, Chloe reached down into her oversized designer tote bag and pulled out a thick, glossy manila folder. She practically shoved it across the table toward me. Her eyes were wide, playing the excited, expectant mother role to terrifying perfection. I have already been looking at Pinterest for weeks, Sienna, Chloe said, her voice breathy, enthusiastic, and unhinged. I want to knock down the load-bearing wall between your primary home office and the second guest suite to make a open-concept nursery. And the dark imported mahogany hardwood floors in the main living room are a little too gloomy for a baby's aesthetic, so Marcus knows a contractor who can rip them all out and put in light Scandinavian oak. I even brought some premium color swatches for you to look at. We are hoping to have the deed formally transferred into our names by the end of the month, so we can start the renovations before my third trimester gets too uncomfortable. I stared blankly at the glossy folder sitting next to my plate. The sheer, unadulterated audacity of the gesture sent a cold, violent wave of shock straight through my chest. She was not asking for a favor. She had already mentally moved into my property, measured my walls, and meticulously planned the destruction of my private sanctuary. Marcus leaned forward, resting his heavy elbows on the pristine table. The dim lighting of the restaurant caught the glint of the bulky gold watch on his wrist, a cheap, painfully obvious fake Rolex I had spotted the second he sat down. He smirked, exuding a toxic, unearned arrogance that made my stomach physically turn. Let us be real here, Sienna, Marcus said, his voice laced with heavy condescension and fake concern. You are single, you have no kids, you spend all your time locked in that house messing with computers anyway. What does a single childless woman need with a lakeside compound and a private dock? It is selfish to hoard that kind of premium space when your own flesh and blood is actively trying to build a beautiful family. You should be genuinely happy to help your older sister out. You know, you need to finally step up and do your part for the family legacy. The anger did not explode out of me in a fiery rage. Instead, it instantly crystallized into a sharp, icy, laser-focused precision. I looked from Marcus's smug, punchable face to Chloe's expectant, entitled smile, and finally to my parents, who sat there waiting for me to blindly comply, like I always did when I was a terrified child. In that fleeting moment of heavy silence, my mind rapidly flashed back over the grueling last 7 years of my life. I thought about the 90-hour work weeks I endured to build my cybersecurity and forensic data firm, from a single overheating laptop in a cramped, moldy studio apartment into a secretive, multi-million-dollar defense contracting agency. I thought about the countless nights I fell asleep at my desk, the severe panic attacks, the missed vacations, and the sheer relentless grind of securing high-profile federal clients. I sacrificed my 20s to build an independent empire and buy that specific house. And where was Chloe during those difficult years? She was dropping out of an expensive private university that my father had paid for in cash. She was crashing expensive leased cars and crying hysterically to my mother, who dipped into her own retirement savings to cover the damages. When Chloe racked up over $60,000 in credit card debt, flying to Miami and Dubai with her unemployed, superficial friends, my parents secretly took out a second mortgage on their home to bail her out. They never once asked her to take responsibility. They never asked her to struggle. She was the golden child, forever protected from the devastating consequences of her own terrible actions. And Marcus was just the newest, most expensive mistake they were trying to sweep under the rug. A smooth-talking, manipulative scammer who charmed his way into the family and immediately started living off my parents' fading generosity. My father finally looked up from his plate, sensing my hesitation. He pointed his sharp steak knife directly at me, his eyes hardening into a furious glare. "We are not asking for a favor, Sienna," my father said, his voice dropping into the authoritative, terrifying boom he used to terrorize me as a vulnerable teenager. "You will sign that property over to your sister immediately. If you want to be stubborn, selfish, and ungrateful, we will take you to court and ruin you. I co-signed on your first little condo years ago, which means I have a strong equitable interest in your overall financial success. You owe this family your life. Sign the transfer papers this week, or we will legally force the sale of the property and take what is rightfully ours." He was talking about a tiny rundown apartment I bought at 22. It was a loan I had paid off by myself within 3 grueling years, before selling it at a profit to fund the initial startup costs of my cybersecurity agency. He had zero legal standing, but he relied on deep-seated fear and psychological intimidation to keep me in line. For 31 years, that toxic tactic had worked flawlessly. I had always backed down, I had always swallowed my pride, suppressed my anger, and sacrificed my own well-being to keep the fragile family peace. But looking at them now, sitting around this luxurious table, demanding the keys to my kingdom as if it were their divine, unassailable right, the last thread of my familial loyalty snapped. I did not feel fear anymore. I did not feel obligation. I felt an overwhelming, powerful clarity. They were not my family. They were aggressive, entitled parasites, and they had no idea who they were dealing with. No, the single syllable left my mouth with calm, slicing cleanly through the heavy, tense air of the restaurant. I did not raise my voice a single decibel, but the terrifying finality in my tone made Chloe physically flinch. My mother's artificial, sickly sweet smile instantly froze on her face. "Excuse me, Sienna," my mother whispered, her eyes narrowing. "I know you did not just look me in the eye and tell me no." I looked directly into her eyes, leaning slightly forward. I said no, I am not giving my home to Chloe, I am not signing over my deed, I am not financing her terrible life choices, and I am certainly not subsidizing her useless husband. Before my mother could gasp in feigned, theatrical shock, my father erupted. Richard slammed his heavy, meaty fist down on the solid mahogany table with incredible force. The crystal wine glasses clinked together, and the expensive silverware rattled loudly against the porcelain plates. Several heads at nearby tables snapped in our direction, the quiet hum of the restaurant coming to a sudden, uncomfortable halt. But my father did not care. He had always relied on public intimidation to force my compliance, wrongly assuming my desire to avoid a public scene would make me instantly surrender. "You listen to me right now, little girl," he hissed. His voice was a low, gravelly rumble vibrating with unadulterated rage. "You are going to sign that quitclaim deed, or I will personally drag you into a courtroom so fast your head will spin. You think because you fix a few computers for a living, you are suddenly untouchable. You are nothing without me." I took a slow, deliberate sip of my sparkling water, quietly watching a thick purple vein pulse in his forehead. "On what exact legal grounds, Dad?" "On the grounds that I own a piece of everything you have ever built." He shot back, leaning his large frame across the table to hover threateningly over me. "Do you honestly think I forgot who co-signed for that first little condo of yours? I put my good name on the line for you, when you were a nobody. You used the profits from selling that condo to buy this new house. That gives me equitable interest. Legally, I am entitled to a share of that property, and I am choosing to give my share to your pregnant sister. So, you will sign the paperwork today, or we will force the sale and take what is ours." I had to actively suppress the urge to laugh out loud in his face. His understanding of property law was as outdated and fundamentally flawed as his parenting style. He was banking on my supposed ignorance, hoping that throwing around technical terms like equitable interest would instantly scare me into submission. It was a classic, pathetic manipulation tactic. I gently placed my crystal glass down and folded my hands neatly on the table. Let me quickly educate you on the stark reality of my finances, since you seem so invested in them. I paid off that condo on my own 3 years before I sold it. Your name was permanently removed from the mortgage the exact second I refinanced it, which I did without a single dollar of your help. You have zero legal claim to a single brick, nail, or blade of grass at my current house. Chloe tried to interject, her voice trembling with manufactured victimhood. Sienna, why are you being so hateful and greedy? We are family. Marcus and I just need a little help to get started. Why are you selfishly hoarding all that beautiful space when my baby needs a room? I slowly turned my cold, calculating gaze to my brother-in-law. Marcus sat there, suddenly looking small and nervous inside his oversized tailored jacket. A little help, I repeated, letting the words hang in the tense air. You want a $3.2 million lakeside compound for free? That is not a little help, Chloe. That is a hostile corporate takeover. I leaned in slightly, locking eyes directly with Marcus. He shifted uncomfortably in his seat, a bead of sweat forming on his brow. Let us talk about why you need this house so badly, Marcus. Because it certainly is not about the new baby. If you truly wanted to provide for your child, maybe you would not be driving a leased sports car that you are currently 4 months behind on. Marcus's face drained of all color. He opened his mouth to speak, but no words came out. Oh, did you honestly think I would not know? I said, my voice dropping to a lethal, terrifying whisper. I run a specialized data firm. Information is my literal currency. I know that the car is leased. I know you have maxed out 6 different credit cards, trying to keep up this pathetic, transparent facade of being a successful tech entrepreneur. I know you owe thousands in aggressive back taxes, and I know that neither of you has the financial means to even pay the monthly property taxes on my house, let alone maintain the extensive landscaping. You are lying to them. Chloe shrieked, breaking her sweet, innocent character. She turned to Marcus, slapping his arm. Tell her she is lying, Marcus. Tell her. Marcus swallowed hard, his Adam's apple bobbing rapidly as another heavy bead of sweat rolled down his temple. He avoided her panicked gaze. Now hold on, Sienna, you do not know the whole financial picture. I have crypto investments tied up right now. Liquidating them would incur early withdrawal penalties. Stop talking, Marcus, I snapped, my voice finally carrying a sharp, razor-thin edge that cut him down instantly. You do not have investments. You have catastrophic, crippling debts. I looked back at my stunned parents. And you two are out of your minds if you think I am willingly handing over my hard-earned assets to blindly cover for his failures. I have personally paid hundreds of thousands in mortgage payments. Me alone, not you, Dad, and certainly not Marcus. I worked grueling 90-hour weeks, sacrificing my sleep, my health, and my peace of mind to build my life. I am not giving it away to a scammer who refuses to get a real job. My mother gasped, dramatically clutching her pearls in a theatrical display of maternal heartbreak. She leaned back in her chair, vigorously shaking her head as if looking at a terrifying monster. I do not even know who you are anymore, Sienna, Evelyn whispered. Her voice was laced with venom and calibrated for the audience of surrounding diners who were now openly eavesdropping. You have let money severely poison your soul. You have become a cold, calculating, and arrogant woman. The Bible says that to whom much is given, much will be required. God blessed you with that little business, and He expects you to share your blessings with your family. You are in disgrace to the way we raised you. She reached over and grabbed Chloe's hand, comforting the 35-year-old woman who was now softly, pathetically sobbing into a linen napkin. It is okay, sweetie, my mother cooed, glaring at me. We will not let your selfish sister ruin your baby's future. The sheer, suffocating manipulation of it all was breathtaking. For years, I would have crumbled under the heavy weight of her aggressive disappointment. I would have drafted a dozen frantic apologies, begging them to understand the financial reality. I would have sacrificed my own sanity just to make the guilt trip stop and restore the fragile peace. But as I sat there in the quiet luxury of the dining room, surrounded by the incredible life I had built with my own 2 hands, I felt nothing but cold, terrifying resolve. I reached into my designer purse and pulled out my sleek leather wallet. I slid a crisp, new $100 bill from the fold and dropped it squarely in the center of the table. It fluttered down slowly, landing right on top of Chloe's ridiculous entitled Pinterest folder. "That is for my steak," I said, my voice eerily steady. I stood up from the table, smoothing out the front of my blazer. I grabbed my purse and looked down at the four people who had spent my life trying to shrink me to fit their narrative. They looked up at me, stunned by my blatant, unapologetic defiance. "You have 30 days to get your things out of the storage unit I have been quietly paying for, Mom. After that, I am liquidating the unit." I shifted my attention to my father, who was still glaring at me with a mixture of hatred and disbelief. "And Dad," I said, a slow, cold smile spreading across my face, "I am really looking forward to seeing you try to legally take my house. I will see you in court. Make sure you can actually afford the filing fees." I did not wait for a single response. I turned on my heel and walked straight out of the restaurant. My heels clicked rhythmically against the hardwood floor, a steady, powerful beat of liberation. I could feel the shocked eyes of the other patrons on my back, but I held my head high. As I stepped out into the crisp, cool morning air, the valet immediately brought my car around. I handed him his ticket, tipped him generously, and slid into the quiet, armored sanctuary of the driver's seat. For the first time in my life, my chest did not feel tight after an argument with my family. My hands were not shaking. I did not feel the desperate, familiar urge to cry. Instead, I felt a deep, profound sense of power. They had finally shown me who they were, and I was free of the toxic illusion that I could ever win their love. But as I drove back to my secure compound, watching the sprawling lakeside trees blur past the reinforced windshield, my mind began to race. My parents were toxic, yes. My father was controlling and my mother was manipulative, but they were not stupid. The desperate, overt aggression at the dinner table felt glaringly off. My father's threat to take me to court was baseless, and he had to know that. The rush to get me out of my house, the sudden frantic need to hand over a multi-million-dollar asset to Marcus by the end of the month, it all pointed to something much, much darker than simple parental favoritism. They were in an overwhelming panic. People only panic like that when a terrifying clock is loudly ticking. Marcus's fake watch and leased car were just the tip of a financial iceberg. I knew I had to dig much deeper. I needed to find out what kind of catastrophic financial hole Marcus had dug, and why my parents were so desperate to physically throw me into it, to save him. I reached over, tapped the touchscreen on my encrypted dashboard, and quickly dialed my corporate lawyer. The line rang twice before Sterling answered. Sterling was a ruthless top-tier corporate litigator who specialized in destroying financial fraudsters. He did not argue with emotion. He argued with unassailable bank statements and digital wire transfers. He was an apex predator, and I needed a predator. I did not waste time with basic pleasantries. I told him I needed a full, aggressive financial background check on my brother-in-law and my parents, starting first thing in the morning. Sterling did not ask any questions. He just told me he would have his elite private investigators on it by dawn. I ended the call, pulled into my gated driveway, and went to sleep with a strange, satisfying sense of calm. That calm, however, was shattered the moment I woke up. It was 6:00 in the morning when my phone started vibrating off the nightstand. I reached over, squinting at the painfully bright screen. I had 47 missed calls, over 100 frantic text messages, and a flood of aggressive notifications from Facebook and Instagram. My stomach tightened. I sat up in bed, pushing my hair back, and opened the Facebook app. There it was, right at the top of my feed, a multi-paragraph post from my mother. She had tagged 30 different extended family members and members of her large church congregation. Attached to the post was a tragic-looking edited photo of Chloe rubbing her pregnant belly, looking exhausted and tearful. The caption was in masterclass in severe psychological manipulation. It read, "Please pray for our family during this devastating, heartbreaking season. A mother's heart is broken today. We raised our daughters to love one another and graciously share their blessings, but the love of money is the root of all evil. My youngest daughter, who the Lord has blessed with so much incredible abundance, has decided to cruelly turn her back on her own blood. She is actively putting her pregnant sister and her hardworking husband out on the street to protect her own selfish, greedy lifestyle. We simply asked for a small act of Christian grace to help Chloe prepare a safe home for my unborn grandchild. But we were met with cruelty and aggressive legal threats. Please keep us in your urgent prayers as we try to navigate this profound, unimaginable betrayal. Family is everything, but sadly, not everyone believes that anymore. I stared at the screen, my jaw clenched so tight my teeth ached. She had flipped the narrative. She did not mention that the small act of grace was demanding I blindly sign over a $3.2 million property. She did not mention Marcus's fake watch or his failing crypto scams. She painted herself as a grieving matriarch and Chloe as a helpless victim of my sudden, inexplicable greed. The comment section was an raging dumpster fire of judgment and performative outrage. Aunt Ruby, my mother's oldest sister, had commented, "Lord have mercy. I am so sorry, Evelyn. We will urgently pray that God softens Sienna's hardened, evil heart." "You simply do not treat family this way," a prominent deacon from their church wrote. "Worldly success means nothing if you lose your soul. We are here for you and Chloe." I switched over to my text messages. The flying monkeys had been fully dispatched. My cousin David, who still currently owed me $5,000 from a failed business venture 2 years ago, had the nerve to text me a lengthy judgmental sermon. He wrote, "You need to make this right, Sienna. Your dad is a proud man, and you embarrassed him in public. Give your pregnant sister the house. You can easily afford another one. We are supposed to be actively building generational wealth, not fighting over bricks and mortar. Do not let the devil use you to break this family apart." Then came an emotional voice note from my godmother, Miss Shirley. I pressed play and listened to her disappointed, trembling voice. "Sienna, child, what on earth is going on with you? Your poor mother called me crying at 2 in the morning. She said you looked her dead in the eye and coldly told her you did not care if Chloe ended up on the street. That is not the sweet girl I helped raise in Sunday school. Women need to strongly support their families, not tear them apart out of sheer greed. You need to immediately apologize and do the Christian thing." Message after message, the underlying theme was the same: family first, blindly protect your blood. They were weaponizing the culture that was supposed to uplift us, twisting it into a toxic tool for financial abuse. They fully expected me to shrink myself so Chloe and Marcus could feel big. In the past, this kind of coordinated, aggressive, emotional attack would have sent me into a tailspin. I would have drafted a dozen long apologies, trying to explain my side, begging them to understand the financial reality. I would have sacrificed my own sanity just to make the aggressive notifications stop and forcefully restore the fragile peace. But as I sat there in the quiet luxury of my bedroom, surrounded by the incredible life I had built with my own 2 hands, I felt nothing but cold, terrifying resolve. I did not reply to a single text. I did not comment on my mother's manipulative post. I did not block them either. I simply turned my phone on silent, meticulously took high-resolution screenshots of every single message, every public comment, and every guilt-tripping voice note, and immediately forwarded them to a secure, encrypted folder I shared with Sterling. Let them talk. Let them clearly show their true toxic colors. Their words were no longer heavy weapons that could emotionally hurt me. They were concrete, legally actionable evidence of harassment. I got out of bed, walked into my marble bathroom, and turned on the hot shower. As the water washed over me, I started analyzing the situation, not as a wounded daughter, but as the ruthless CEO of a cybersecurity firm. My agency specialized in handling data leaks and crisis management for visible federal clients. I knew how to quickly read between the lines of a coordinated smear campaign, and something about my mother's melodramatic Facebook post was glaringly out of place. My parents were obsessively concerned with outward appearances. They were the kind of superficial people who would hide a foreclosure or a devastating bankruptcy out of sheer, blinding pride. Putting our private family drama on public social media for the church and surrounding community to openly see was out of character for my mother. She hated public embarrassment more than anything in the world. So why was she broadcasting that Chloe and Marcus were essentially homeless and begging for my property? The math was simply not adding up. Entitled people demand things because they genuinely think they deserve them. Desperate people demand things because they are out of options. The sheer terrifying speed of this escalation, going from a tense dinner table demand to a full-blown public smear campaign in less than 12 hours, reeked of panic. They were trying to psychologically bully me into rapidly signing the deed immediately by using the extended family as a battering ram. I stepped out of the hot shower and wrapped myself in a thick towel. I walked over to the vanity and looked directly at my reflection. They needed my house. They did not just casually want it, they urgently needed it right now. The public nature of this aggressive attack was a dead giveaway. My mother was actively laying the public groundwork to firmly justify whatever drastic measure they were secretly planning next. If I was successfully painted as the villain, then anything they did to take the house from me would be seen as righteous, necessary justice by the rest of the family. Marcus was broke. I already knew that. But being simply broke does not fully explain why my parents were willing to destroy their long relationship with me and humiliate themselves online to secure an asset for him. My father was a stubborn, prideful man. He would never stick his neck out for a deadbeat son-in-law unless he had a devastating personal stake in the immediate outcome. My father only protected things that directly affected his own financial survival or his ego. A terrifying, chilling realization washed over me. What if my parents were directly tied to Marcus's debts? What if they had blindly co-signed something large for him, just like my father had constantly thrown in my face about my first tiny condo? Chloe was the ultimate golden child. If Marcus had come to them with some fake investment opportunity or a desperate, tearful plea for a loan, my parents would have quickly handed over everything they legally had to protect her. I grabbed my heavy briefcase and my car keys. My phone lit up again with another text, this time directly from Chloe herself. It read, "I hope you are happy. Mom's blood pressure is through the roof. You are literally destroying this family over unchecked greed. Just sign the transfer papers and we can all go back to normal." I stared coldly at the text. Go back to normal. Their normal was me serving as the family ATM. Their normal was my submission. I deleted the message without responding. I drove to my secure office in downtown. I spent the drive formulating a ruthless strategy. I needed to temporarily let them think they were winning the public relations battle. Let them rally the aunts, the uncles, and the church choir. Let them paint me as the ultimate villain. In crisis management, you never interrupt your stupid enemy when they are making a mistake. You let them overplay their hand. By the time I confidently walked into my secure agency, my assistant instantly handed me a fresh cup of coffee and a thick manila envelope that had just been couriered over from Sterling's office. The stark label on the front simply read, "Preliminary Financial Findings." Then the heavy, grating rumble of a diesel engine shattered the quiet. I watched in, jaw-dropping disbelief as he stood on my pristine lawn, loudly clapping his hands together and pointing toward my front porch. The burly movers quickly rolled up the heavy back door of the truck and rapidly began unloading large boxes. Then came the heavy furniture, a pristine white wooden crib, a bright pink changing table, a heavy, expensive rocking chair. They were piling Chloe's expensive nursery furniture right onto my beautiful front lawn. I had upgraded the heavy locks the morning after I securely closed on the compound. My mother had thrown a hysterical fit back then, demanding a spare key for emergencies. I knew her toxic version of an emergency meant dropping by unannounced to snoop through my confidential mail. I handed her a shiny new key to quickly appease her, knowing full well it went to the back door of my old, tiny apartment, not this fortified house. It seemed she had finally passed that useless piece of metal directly onto Marcus. When the fake key failed, the aggressive pounding started. Marcus slammed his heavy fist against the solid oak. "Sienna, open this door!" Marcus's voice was muffled, but loud, echoing through the quiet, upscale neighborhood. "Open up! Your mother actively gave us the key. We are moving in today. Chloe is waiting in the car at Mom's house and I urgently need to get this nursery set up. Stop playing your stupid games and open the damn door. He kicked the heavy bottom of the door. The thud vibrated through the hardwood floorboards. Come on, Shiana. We have a lease ending. You are being ridiculous. This is family property. Open the damn door before I literally have to forcefully break it down. 911, what is your exact emergency? The professional dispatcher's voice was sharp and alert. Yes, I am actively reporting an aggressive home invasion and criminal trespassing at my residence. I gave her my exact address in the wealthy gated community. I am securely locked inside my home alone. There is an aggressive man pounding on my heavy front door, actively attempting to break in. He just loudly threatened to forcefully kick the door down. He has a moving truck illegally parked in my long driveway and is dumping heavy furniture on my pristine lawn. Do you know the aggressive individual, ma'am? He is my unstable brother-in-law, but he has no legal right to be here, no ownership of the multi-million-dollar property, and I have explicitly, repeatedly told him he is not welcome. He is acting erratically and is trying to force entry. I understand multiple armed units are being dispatched right now. Are you in a secure, safe location? I am safe, I replied, my calm voice devoid of any panic. The heavy doors are massively reinforced. Just send the armed officers quickly before he damages the expensive property. I hung up the phone. I confidently walked back to the large window and quietly watched. Marcus had given up on the heavy front door and was now pacing across the pristine lawn, yelling furiously into his cell phone. He was likely complaining to my toxic mother or pregnant Chloe that I was being stubborn. The burly movers were standing off to the side, looking uncomfortable. They were seasoned professionals, and they clearly, strongly sensed that something about this job was wrong. One of them pulled out a clipboard and forcefully tried to hand it to Marcus, likely asking for a quick signature to just drop the items and quickly leave, but Marcus waved him off. It is about time you guys got here, Marcus called out, waving his heavy hand toward my house. My crazy sister-in-law has forcefully locked herself securely inside and will not let the expensive movers in. Tell her to open the heavy door. We have an amount of heavy lifting to do today, sir. Step back from the vehicle and strictly keep your hands where I can visibly see them. Who are you, and what is your aggressive business at this private residence? Marcus scoffed, looking offended that he was being questioned instead of blindly obeyed. I am Marcus. This is my family's house. Well, it is my house now. My toxic mother-in-law explicitly gave it to us for the new baby. We are moving in. The selfish girl inside is just throwing a temper tantrum. Go forcefully knock on the heavy door and tell her to immediately let us in. Do you have a legal deed to this multi-million-dollar property, sir? A lease agreement. Any piece of verifiable legal documentation with your name on it, explicitly connecting you to this secure address. Marcus rolled his eyes, his frustration boiling over. I do not need a stupid piece of useless paper. It is a binding family arrangement. Look, I have the key right here. He reached into his deep track jacket pocket. Both armed officers instantly tensed. Do not reach into your pockets. Keep your hands fully visible right now. The tall older officer barked the loud command, his voice echoing across the pristine lawn. Marcus pulled his hand out, holding the useless spare key my toxic mother had blindly given him. He held it up high like a trophy. See? I have the real key right now. Go do your paid jobs and get her out of my house. The imposing older officer was unbothered by the dramatic performance. Sir, we directly received a frantic call from the verified legal homeowner, stating that you are trespassing and actively attempting to literally break down the heavy front door. If you do not have concrete proof of verified ownership, you need to firmly instruct these expensive movers to pack this heavy furniture back up, and you need to forcefully vacate the private premises immediately. If you do not leave, you will be arrested for aggressive trespassing. Marcus's contoured face contorted with sheer, unchecked rage. The fragile, pathetic facade of the wealthy connected tech investor crumbled, revealing the desperate, entitled, broke scammer underneath. You are not arresting me, you work for me. I pay your salary, you do not know who I am. You cannot legally kick me off my own property. My mother-in-law said, "This is my final warning, sir. Leave the property right now, I am not going anywhere." Marcus stepped forward, closing the physical distance between himself and the armed officer, pointing his shaking finger right directly into the imposing cop's stern face. "You are going to forcefully go up to that heavy door, and you are going to make that selfish, greedy witch let me forcefully in." That was the fatal, terrible mistake. It happened terrifyingly fast. The imposing older officer grabbed Marcus's outstretched arm, twisting it sharply directly behind his back. Marcus yelped in sheer incredible pain and surprise, losing his balance. The fast younger officer stepped in instantly. Together, they spun the screaming Marcus around and slammed him face first against the hot metal hood of the aggressive black and white cruiser. "Hey, get off me, what are you doing?" Marcus screamed, his voice cracking in sheer panicked terror. He started thrashing, trying to forcefully pull his heavy arms free, which only made things infinitely worse. Stop resisting right now," the armed officer yelled, pressing his heavy forearm firmly against Marcus's upper back to hold him down against the hot metal of the car hood. "You are breaking my arm, do you know who I am? I will sue you, I will sue this whole city," Marcus wailed, humiliated as the uncomfortable movers stood by closely watching the aggressive man who hired them get taken forcefully down. "Marcus, you are formally under aggressive arrest for aggressive criminal trespassing and resisting a sworn officer without aggressive violence. You have the right to strictly remain silent. Anything you say can and will be forcefully used against you in a strict court of law." The armed officer rapidly read him his rights seamlessly while patting down his expensive pockets, pulling out his cheap fake wallet and the useless spare key. The imposing older officer rapidly looked up and clearly saw me. "Ma'am, are you the verified legal homeowner?" "Yes, officer," I replied clearly. "My beautiful name is Sienna. I am the sole verified owner of this compound, Sienna. Tell them your toxic mother gave us the house. Tell them to rapidly take these heavy aggressive cuffs off me right now. Chloe is pregnant, you are stressing out the baby. Tell them." I looked right through him. I elegantly turned my beautiful's attention back directly to the imposing officer. "I want to formally press full criminal charges for the aggressive trespassing," I stated, my voice calm but lethal. "He threatened to kick my heavy front door down. I also want him formally trespassed from this property, so that if he ever sets foot on my beautiful grass again, it is an immediate severe felony." "Understood, ma'am," the professional officer said respectfully. He turned and looked sternly over at the nervous movers. "Pack this heavy stuff back into your truck and get off this lady's private property right now. If you leave a single thing behind, I will cite you for illegal heavy dumping." Less than 2 aggressive minutes passed before my encrypted phone screen lit up. The frantic caller ID flashed Chloe's name, Sienna. "What did you just do? What is wrong with you?" Chloe wailed loudly. Her panicked, shrill voice was frantic, echoing loudly through my quiet kitchen. "I just watched them forcefully put Marcus in the back of an aggressive police car." "How could you call the aggressive cops on your own brother-in-law? He was just trying to move our expensive things." "You mean he was trying to break directly into my house, Chloe?" I corrected her, my lethal flat tone unbothered. "He forcefully brought a commercial heavy-moving truck to a house he does not legally own, tried to force his heavy way through my securely locked front door, and then threatened a trained, armed police officer. I did not arrest him, his own arrogant, pathetic stupidity arrested him." "You set him up!" Chloe sobbed, her heavy, frantic breathing echoing. "You knew Mom gave us the spare key, and you purposely changed the heavy locks to humiliate him. Do you know what this kind of aggressive stress does to a pregnant woman? I am literally shaking in the heavy car down the aggressive street. If something terrible happens to my baby because of the heavy stress you are forcefully causing me today, it will be your aggressive fault. You are a cold-hearted, aggressive monster." "Nobody forced Marcus to come here," I replied. "Nobody forced him to act like an aggressive thug in front of trained law enforcement. You and Mom fed his incredible delusion that he could just claim my property." Now he is facing the incredible heavy reality of the law. You need to call the heavy precinct right now and drop the heavy charges. Chloe demanded, her frantic tears turning into anger. Tell them he had permission to be there. I am not dropping anything, I said, my tone hardening. He is formally trespassed. You better find a good bondsman, Chloe, because he is going to be sitting in a holding cell for a while. The silence wrapped around me, but almost instantly, my phone buzzed with an urgent voicemail from my father. I pressed play, and Richard's booming, furious voice filled the room. Sienna, you have crossed the line for the last time, he barked, his voice vibrating with unfiltered rage. You had her husband arrested over a simple family misunderstanding. You think because you have a little money from fixing computers, you can treat us like garbage. Let me make something clear to you. You are going to call the police and get him out right now. And if you do not, I promise you, I will make it my mission to tear down everything you have built. I know who your clients are. I will call every single one of them and tell them what kind of ruthless, selfish person you are. I will ruin your reputation in this city. Call the precinct now. I walked into my home office, sat at my glass desk and began to process the logistics. While my family threw tantrums, my mind rapidly pivoted to the cold, hard facts. Something was glaringly wrong. Marcus was arrested for criminal trespassing and resisting an officer without violence. These were basic misdemeanor charges. In this county, the standard bail would be around $1,500. Through a standard bondsman, Marcus only needed to front 10%. He needed maybe $150 to walk out of that jail cell. Chloe had just panicked, begging me to drop the charges so he could come home. My father was leaving extortionist voicemails demanding I get him released. Why fight so hard to get me to drop the charges immediately? The terrifying answer hit me like a physical blow, because they did not have the money to bail him out. Marcus wore designer tracksuits and boasted about his venture capital crypto investments. Chloe acted like an impossible wealthy wife. My parents always bragged about their pristine credit scores. Yet, when faced with a petty bail amount that any working adult could easily cover, the family was in a meltdown. Marcus could not post a mere $150 bail. His accounts must be drained. Even more revealing, my parents could not bail him out either. The facade was cracking wide open. The wealth was an illusion. The desperation to seize my house was not just about getting Chloe a nice nursery. It was a matter of financial life and death. They were broke, buried under aggressive debt, and my house was the only life raft left. They needed my equity to survive whatever financial disaster Marcus had secretly caused. It was time to go on the offensive. I picked up my phone and dialed Sterling Pierce. The line rang once before his sharp, predatory voice answered. Sienna, tell me you have good news. I have a complete circus, Sterling, I replied, but I think we just definitively found the weak spot in the tent. I gave him a rapid rundown of the morning. I told him about the moving truck, the aggressive confrontation, Marcus getting arrested, and the revealing fact that they could not afford a $150 bail bond. I have the preliminary financial data you requested, Sterling said, his voice devoid of any emotion. Your instincts were correct. Marcus's supposed tech startup is a front. He has been systematically laundering money for a dangerous offshore syndicate. Over the last year, he lost $850,000 of their money in terrible, untraceable crypto bets. He is also carrying federal tax liens. But here is the devastating part, Sienna. Your parents co-signed a $500,000 business loan to back Marcus's company. They put their own house up as collateral. They are underwater. I closed my eyes. The betrayal was complete. They were actively trying to steal my house to pay off the syndicate and save their own home from immediate foreclosure. I have intercepted all the encrypted data transfers, I told Sterling. I have the full digital footprint of the fraud scheme, the federal tax evasion, and the syndicate wire transfers. I am sending the file to the FBI Cyber Crimes Division right now. Excellent, Sterling replied. And your parents? Let the bank foreclose on them, I said coldly. They made their bed. For every woman listening to this right now who has ever been made to feel small, invisible, or insignificant by the toxic people who were supposed to protect you, your silence is not a weakness. It is an incredible weapon. Do not let toxic family members use manufactured guilt to drain your hard-earned resources. Do not let arrogant, pathetic people dictate your immense worth. Keep your head down, silently build your empire in the dark, and when they finally push you way too far, let them drown in the devastating consequences of their own terrible actions. You do not owe anyone your future. If this story resonated with you, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and rapidly share this video with anyone who needs a powerful reminder that the best revenge is undeniable, devastating success. Let me clearly know in the comments below. Have you ever had to powerfully walk away from toxic family members to permanently protect your peace and your empire? I will confidently see you in the next video. Keep silently building, and never apologize for your incredible power.